They ruled from the shadows of early Europe, their bloodline whispered to carry something unnatural. Not merely royal, not merely noble, but ancient. Older than the church, older than Christ. The Merovingians, Frankish kings with long hair, strange powers, and a symbol they never quite explained, the serpent. Some say their founder was born of a sea creature. Others insist they were anointed by a dragon cult lost to time. What if these weren't just stories? What if a reptilian lineage truly slithered through the roots of power, hidden, heretical, and alive, beneath centuries of erasure? It's easy to dismiss legends, stranger still to follow them. But here in the flicker between fact and folklore, the shadows deepen. The scent of incense, the hiss of ancient tongues, the gleam of serpents on stone, everything hints at something buried, yet never quite dead. And tonight, we go looking. You begin in a room lit by candlelight. Not your room, though it might as well be. Somewhere deeper, older. Picture the thick walls of a monastery, cold stone, carved arches dripping with dust. A figure hunches over a worn manuscript. Fingers tremble slightly, tracing a line of Latin. Then, something odd. A word, crossed out, rewritten, crossed out again. It's not fear exactly that fills the air. It's caution, reverence, as if the name in question holds a weight that bends history itself. Merovingian. Say it slowly. Let the syllables roll over your tongue like old wine. Merove. The dynasty of long-haired kings, the first line to rule France after Rome's collapse. Their story is often told with swords and saints' conversions and coronations. But underneath that layer, beneath the veneer of kingship and canonization, there's a deeper current, a serpentine one. Because the Merovingians weren't just known for power, they were known for strangeness, a founding myth that involves a sea beast. Emblems of dragons, coils, and hybrid creatures, accusations of sorcery, allegations of divine or inhuman origin, and always, always, the serpent. Over the next few hours, we'll follow the scales in the stone. We'll sift through suppressed chronicles, coded legends, and strange patterns etched across Europe. Is there truth beneath the myth of the Serpent Kings? Or was it all just a convenient smear? Before we venture further into the shadows, take a moment to subscribe, so you never miss a secret that history has tried to forget. You picture an old tapestry frayed at the edges, hanging in a forgotten hall. In its weave, golden thread forms the unmistakable shape of a serpent coiled, proud, and crowned. This wasn't decoration, it was declaration. To those who knew what to look for, it spoke not of sin, but of sovereignty. The Merovingians, as legend has it, weren't just rulers by conquest or divine appointment. They were guardians of something far more enigmatic, a bloodline infused with ancient power. One that some say slithered up from the deepest roots of time itself. Official histories begin the Merovingian story with a warrior chieftain named Childeric Wanto buried with hundreds of golden bees, his grave untouched for centuries, until it was opened by accident near Tournai in 1653. But it was his supposed father, or not quite father, that drew the true mystique. According to Gregory of Tours and other early chroniclers, Childeric's son, Merovech, namesake of the dynasty, was conceived when his mother went swimming in the ocean and encountered something. Some versions call it a sea beast. Others, more delicately, a quenator, a creature part bull, part fish. Whatever it was, the suggestion was clear. Merovech may not have been fully human. He might have carried something else in his veins, something older. This tale, strange as it sounds, wasn't dismissed as superstition. It was repeated, embroidered, and curiously never quite retracted. You wonder why. If early Christian chroniclers wanted to clean the bloodline to remove the pagan stain, why leave such a bizarre origin myth intact? Unless perhaps they couldn't erase it entirely. Unless the myth was too rooted in the identity of the Merovingians themselves. Or worse, unless it was protected. The idea of sacred blood wasn't uncommon in antiquity. Egyptian pharaohs claimed divine parentage. The Roman emperors had their deifications. But in Merovingian lore, this sacredness had a reptilian flavor. Dragons, serpents, sea beasts, motifs that slithered their way into royal seals, burial designs, and folklore across the Frankish territories. And it wasn't only myth. A 7th century ring discovered near Chalon-sur-Saône bore the inscription of a coiled serpent around the initials of a Merovingian noblewoman. It could be coincidence, decorative flair, but it could also be legacy. Some scholars argue the serpent was simply a symbol of wisdom or eternity. After all, the Ouroboros, the snake eating its own tail, was a popular motif in alchemy and early Christian mysticism. But others suggest something more controversial, that the Merovingians were intentionally invoking symbols of an older pre-Christian cult. That they weren't just kings, but keepers of a line that predated Rome, predating even the Gauls. Perhaps they were not merely descendants of a man named Merovech, but of an idea, a myth, a bloodline that carried the serpent's mark. The Carolingians, who later overthrew the Merovingians, seemed eager to bury this legacy. They painted the last Merovingian kings as do-nothings, puppet monarchs, without agency or merit. They emphasized their long hair, their strange rituals, their isolation. And yet those same traits, the secrecy, the separation, the sacred strangeness, hint at something more than royal negligence. They feel ritualistic, cultic. A curious thread emerges when you examine the way later European dynasties treated their own bloodlines. There's a persistent fascination with ancestry, but also an unease. The idea that too much inbreeding might summon old traits, that certain families were touched by something uncanny. Some of this could be attributed to superstition or political slander. Yet in the Merovingians' case, the serpent motif endured in whispers long after their dynasty fell. It crept into medieval romances. It echoed in heretical sects. It even found its way into secret societies who saw in the Merovingian line not a political legacy, but a spiritual one.